All right. Welcome to this episode of Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and I'm really excited about this episode because for the first time, we got 3 people in the Market Shares studio, and this is going to be a really great conversation. I have with me today Charles Kalonji, who is one of our loan officers here at New American Funding. I've really enjoyed getting to know this guy over the last few months. And then just here to my right is a real estate agent that I met at an event that we had here at New American. And I'm just really excited to uncover and unpack your story. This is Hervé Kidiadi. Did I say it right?
Yes. That's
close? Okay, right on. Hervé, I'm glad to have you here. We talked when we first met about getting together and putting this podcast episode out because I think there's some great stories to really tell. So welcome both of you up to the Market Share studio. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having us, Tony.
Yeah, man. So we're going to get started. I want to talk a little bit about your guys' background. I think it's a good place to start. We always like to talk about how people got in the industry, but I want to talk about how you got to this country, right? Because you guys both come from the Congo in Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and it's actually a really fascinating country. You know, since the conversations that we've had, I've learned more. I watched a few videos on YouTube, and it's very interesting, in my opinion, kind of what, all of the potential that a country like that has with all the natural resources, the business, you think of Africa, you think of, all desert land, but there's actually a lot of agriculture and opportunities there in Congo. And it's just a company that's been kind of enthralled with, very difficult government situations for really many, many years. And it looks to me like it seems like it's getting better and then there's challenges, but it also sounds like a culture that really is proud of who they are, where they're from, despite some of what might look like a lot of challenges. So I'm super inspired by you guys. But Charles, let's talk with you first, maybe a little bit about your life living in Congo and what brought you to the United States, and then we'll maybe talk about how did that transition into being a mortgage loan officer.
Yeah, well, I'm of Congolese background, so just to kind of clarify, like my father, who's passed away, rest in peace, it was from the Congo, and my mom is white American. So I grew up actually between America and Africa, different places in Africa and Congo as well. But I was born actually in Washington, D.C. So my mom and dad met in Kenya, East Africa, and got married in Kenya and moved to the United States, and shortly after I was born. But I have always had this rich relationship with, going back and forth from Africa and United States as a kid and seeing both worlds and seeing other Africans in the diaspora as well in the United States. So I've always kind of grown up with both cultural values, and a lot of them are closely aligned, but, appreciating both sides of both cultures as I've grown up.
Got it. No, I didn't know that about your story. So I hear that traveling back and forth to Africa, to the Congo in particular, can be challenging. Is that something that you get an opportunity to do often, or?
Yeah, I mean, I have to go back again probably by the end of this year, but it can be challenging, with all of the visas and whatnot, and the shots and what have you that you have to get. But it's well worth it. I highly suggest anybody that hasn't been to Africa to go visit, Congo or any of the other countries in Africa. And it's a really wonderful experience. People are very welcoming. And and Hervé can also, add to that as well, because he goes back and forth more often as well, and has come over more recently. When we, talk about his story as well, he can give more insight on that. But, it's just always great to travel, broaden one's horizons, and gives you a new perspective, on the world and life. Yeah.
Well, before we get into the transition into mortgage, maybe let's talk about your story, as well. Were you born here in the United States as well, or?
No, so I moved to the U.S. back in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was born and raised back in Congo.
Okay.
Yeah, so short after high school, my parents wanted me to actually go to the medical school because for my mom and my dad, I had to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. So which I did, right? So I went to the medical school in 2010 for like 1 year. But after the first year, I went home and I was like, man, this is not for me, right? So I knew I had to be an entrepreneur. I knew I had to be in business, but I just didn't know how and where to actually do it. So I started to do some research, and one day I was just watching TV, and then Obama said, America is the land of opportunities. So I went home and I told my mom, you know what? I'm dropping out. I'm going to North America. But I did not decide to actually come to the US. I wanted to go to Canada, Toronto.
Oh, okay.
That was my favorite city in the world, and I wanted to be in Toronto. So my dad looked at me and he was like, man, you are throwing your future away. I said, this is not for me. There is pretty much, because back then the country was kind of like really, really difficult. There was no opportunity for youngsters, like youth like me. And the only way for me to actually have a chance in life, I had to get out of my country. And coming to Toronto for me was like, okay, this is my golden ticket. I have to go there.
Where did you do your medical studies at? Was that?
Yeah, so I did it back home,
Okay.
my country, but I had to go 2 hours from my hometown because that was basically the best medical school that my parents wanted me to
Got
be
it,
at.
got
So,
it.
Yeah. So for them, I had to get away from my hometown because my hometown for them was kind of a distraction. I had my friends there. I had like my routine and
Sure.
everything. So they wanted me to be focused, and for me to be focused, I had to leave town. So I went like 2 hours away, and I lived there for 14 months by myself.
Okay.
No family, no friends, just my books. Yeah, I did well the first year. So out of 1,600 students, only 35 went through the second year, and I was among the 35. But I did not want to continue because I wanted to become an entrepreneur. So I made a decision to drop out, which upset my dad, and my mom cried that day. So my dad did not talk to me for 7 months after that.
Oh,
after that
wow.
conversation. And I had no other way. And one day, he called me into his office, and he asked me, you are throwing your future away. I said, yes, but at this moment, my gut are just telling me I have to be in North America. So I need you now to either support me or to not support me. But either way, I'm going to Canada. So he sat back, he looked at me, then he asked, where do we start? I said, I don't know, but I tell you what, I am going to figure that out. So that was 2011. So I started to do some research and reach out to people to ask questions, how to get to Canada, how to get a visa. Then I had to find out Canada was not issuing visa in my country at the time because of the conflict they had with our former president Kabila. So I had to travel to Kenya to get a visa. And I've never been out of my country before that. So I told my dad, listen, this is the process. I found a lady. She's going to help me out with the process and everything. It's going to cost $6,000. But I had to be in Kenya for me to actually apply for a visa, which I did. So from 2011 to 2014, I got denied a visa about 14 times.
Wow.
Right? And each time, my dad had to spend money.
Did you have to stay there in Kenya then,
Yes.
or?
So basically, you go to Kenya, you apply for the visa in the embassy, they keep your passport like for 90 days, and then they will give you a response. So without a passport, I couldn't go back to my country.
Right.
So I had to stay in the hotel for like 90 days. So my dad had to pay for food, hotel, and transportation, and everything. Then they deny a visa. So you had to start the process all over again. So for 4 years, that's what I did. Tried over and over and over and over and over again. Never got a visa until I got a chance to actually come to the US. So I was, my last time I applied for a visa, I also played what we call DV lottery, right?
Lottery.
So it's a program the US government has for people like us in Africa. We apply for the program, and then if your name is selected, then you get a green card to move to the US. That's how I got.
But it's a lottery process.
It's a
There's
lottery.
no.
So there are literally millions of people. So you had like your odds to actually get to the US are close to pretty much like it's like 1 in a million.
It's like the lottery.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, it sounds like the odds are better than going to Kenya and trying to get a visa into Canada.
Right. So the only guarantee was like if you win, if you got selected, you are guaranteed to have a green card to move to the US. So that happened in 2014, but the process would take at least 12 months before you could get to the US. That's how I moved here in 2015. I had no English at all, or no money. My dad gave me 1,200 bucks to come with here, and I moved here May 1st of 2015, and the next day I had to pay rent. So half of my money was actually gone. No English, no nothing. I had only a sister here, and I had to start from scratch.
Wow. That is an incredible story.
Yeah.
Well, and we're just getting started. Well, I appreciate you breaking that all down for me. I can't imagine it. So it sounds like, you know, the 4 years you would have spent in school, you spent trying to get a visa, really.
That was kind of depressing because when you are trying to do the process to get a visa, your friends are finishing school.
Yeah.
Right? Your friends are getting degrees. Your friends are like, "Oh man, you are nothing, bro. You are actually wasting your time trying to do this." But I was like, damn, if this is not going to work for me, if I'm not going to be able to go to Canada, I have to go back to square one, right? And I was already like 21 at the time, and I fell into depression. And at the same time, I also lost my best friend. So he did commit suicide. And that time was like really rough, like 2012, 2014, like that was really, really dark for me. But that's where I strive the most, right? Because that experience actually built like a mental toughness that drives me right now. That drives me daily.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Wow. I love that story. That's really moving. So Charles, we're going to talk about your kind of progression into the world of mortgage and finance. And then we're going to talk about how you got into real estate, Hervé, because what I love about your guys' story is it drives the passion for what you do today. And that's why I wanted to have the conversation and start there, because I think people will really understand the work you're doing today is because of what you've gone through, right, in your past, right? So how'd you get into mortgage finance? How does that happen? What was the path for you to get there?
So that's a great question, and my story is kind of interesting. You know, I look back at it because I also, you know, I grew up in the Seattle area during high school, my high school years, my teenage years. I went to Garfield High School. I'm a Garfield graduate. Go Bulldogs. But yeah, and I've always been into music since a small kid. I've always, you know, as much younger, I was doing hip hop as an MC, and I, you know, started playing guitar in my teenage years, and with my mixed Congolese American background, I had appreciation for, you know, all, you know, Congolese music, world music, American music, from hip hop to rock. And so that was a big part of my high school years and getting ready. I went to University of Washington, where I graduated from as well. I'm a Husky. So as I was in school, I needed a job. I was working different jobs, and a buddy of mine, I used to come to the shows, as a fan of our group, but also a good friend of mine. I noticed he was always driving these new cars, and I was like, where do you always get these new cars from? Like, you know, like every time he would come to a show, he'd have another brand new car, and he said, oh, you know, I work in the rental car business in the airport. And so before then, I had no idea of what commission income was, or how you can make commission income. And so he said, what do you do? I was like, I'm looking for a job. He's like, he said, are you a good salesperson? I said, well, yeah, I think I am. I see myself as a good salesperson, but I'd never had like a sales job before. So he started explaining to me how I make commission off of being a rental agent. He said, come down to the job tomorrow and interview with my manager. So I did, and I interviewed with the manager. They explained to me what I needed to do. I got the job, and then from that day, that's when it kind of opened my eyes about having a commission-based job rather than the hourly type of typical job. And so I did very well as a rental agent. I was, my first year, I think I made $60,000, which to me was amazing. Like at that time, I'm this college student, making that. I never thought I would make that much money, And so then, and then after that, I was like, my coworker said, hey, you should buy a house. And at that time, I'm in college. I'm just thinking like buying a house is like the furthest thing from my mind. I thought I wouldn't qualify for that, or like you have to have a lot of money or something. They're like, no, it's really easy. I was like, well, where do you do? Like, where do I start? They said, well, just look for like a home buyer class somewhere in your area, and then just go to the class, and they'll explain it to you. So I was, I saw an advertisement for one, and I went to it. And it was taught by a real estate agent and a loan officer. And I remember at the end of the class, I was just like, man, this is awesome. Where do I sign up? Like, how,
What year was this? Like,
this was 2003, I believe. Yeah, it was like a little bit, it was early 2003.
Okay.
Because after the class, I went up to the loan officer and the real estate agent that taught it. And I was like, where do I sign up? Where do I start? And they were like, no, you start here, and, we'll help you. They were really cool with me. They walked me through the process. I ended up buying my first house in 2003. And it was much easier than I thought. And so after I did that, while I was getting ready to finish my school, and we just moved into our first house, I had just had my first son, and I just started to think, I want to do this, because I was doing a rental car, like I said, doing very well at it, but I wasn't really I was giving people a service, but it wasn't something that was a life-changing service that I was doing for people. And I thought that I could use my talents at sales to do mortgage. So again, I've always done music, through this whole time. And so I was at another show that I was doing, and I saw another buddy of mine after the show, and he was like, hey, that was a great show. How you been? Oh, I've been great. I'm like, what have you been up to? He's like, oh, yeah, man, I've been working in mortgage, my friend said. I said, oh, really? I'm interested in getting into that industry. Like, how do you get into that industry? And he was like, what do you do? And I started explaining to him about what I've been doing at rental cars, and he said, you know what? My boss would love to hear that story. He was like, come to my office tomorrow in Bellevue and meet my boss. And, so I did, and I explained to the boss kind of the success that I was having at rental cars, because I was explaining, like, how it's a numbers game, and I try to help as many people as possible, not trying to cheat them out of anything, just trying to, like, help. The more people you help, the more, So he was impressed by that, and he hired me. The next day, I was a mortgage officer in, like, 2004, and, and I just dove right in it and had some of the most successful times, some of the really like early formative years of, that kind of group work ethic that we had in the branch, and just that excitement. And then I was doing well, and then the crash. And so after the crash happened, because where we were working at that time was more sort of like a call center. It was not like, it were people that were calling in, mostly refinances and stuff like that. But after the crash, I said, if I have to, in order to survive and navigate through this type of situation, I have to see, okay, what should I be? And so I decided to become a loan officer in a bank. So I went to Chase for a while and did the loan officer thing in a bank for a while. But the more and more after the crash, things started getting better, and my business started picking up. I realized that I have a lot of my people in my community that need my help. That the big banks, they have their own mortgage programs which are fine for their customers and whatnot. But a lot of times, my people, like the people in the Congolese American community, needed more of somebody to help them through the process and to explain all this stuff to them. And we also needed, access to all the different loan programs that were available. For example, down payment assistance or other, more flexible loan programs. When I saw that, more and more of my business was becoming, people that were I considered like my family and my friends, that I was helping them out, I no longer really needed to be at the big banks anymore, and I took a leap of faith to go into the independent mortgage company side. Went to a couple of places, but, so thankful to have found a home here at New American Funding, because, what I have found, since, I've been here and before I came here is, New American's Funding's values really, correspond with mine in terms of, helping the underserved, helping everybody, to have an equal shot at the American dream. And I've been just, so excited to, continue watching my business grow and helping, people, because I look at myself more so as a helper and a trusted advisor. And that's a little bit about my story. But after I graduated, like I said, from UW and got into the mortgage business, it was just no looking back. I knew that's what I wanted to do, and help people and impact their lives in that way. So
yeah. Well, I want to talk a little bit later. We're gonna talk about why it is that someone that might be, a recent immigrant here or someone that has a language barrier, why it's important and why, that really resonated and you realize that, people that are your friends, your family, Congolese Americans, why you could help them and why they need that help. I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand and something that we're pretty passionate about, that I'm passionate about here, as we're building out our region is that, and we talk about kind of having loan officers and business associates that mirror the communities that we want to serve. And there's reason for that, and we spoke about this when we first met. So let's get into maybe your story a little bit. So you didn't get to Toronto, but where did you, when you get to America, where did you kind of first end up?
Yeah, so I first came here, Seattle.
Okay.
So that was my first destination.
How did you choose Seattle? Was it chosen for you? Did you choose it? Was there a certain
my dad.
job? Your dad, okay.
Yeah, my dad chose for me.
At this point, he had some right to probably say,
Yeah, so my dad, he has been supportive. I mean, most of the time, we did not see eye to eye. He never agreed to 100% of everything I wanted. But he knew exactly, sometimes when I want something, it's for a good reason. And for me to get out of the country, it was not only an opportunity for me to actually better my life, but to also change the generation to come.
Well, one thing I thought was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like half the population of Congo is like under 25 years old, right? I mean, it's...
Yes, like the youth are the majority of the people.
Right.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, just because families are kind of big, right? So poverty is a huge problem back home, and then education is also a huge problem.
So is that why at that young age you realize, like, it's going to be difficult for me to accomplish?
It's gonna be difficult for me because when you look at the stats, like numbers don't lie. I love numbers, right?
Right.
Numbers don't lie. When you look at the stats, you look at the numbers, more than 90% of the people are jobless, right? So if you don't come from a rich family, or you don't have much connection back home, you are pretty much dead. So what are your options, right?
Yeah.
So you have to do pretty much what everyone else is doing and then expecting to have like a different outcome. To me, it was like, okay, this is not the way. So I'm not gonna take the easy path, which was go to school and try to find a job. I'm gonna take basically the most difficult part, right? The most complicated one, the path where you don't see the end, right? So it's like when you start a race and then the distance is unknown.
Right.
Are you going to be willing to sprint, right, to chase what you want? So that's the path I took. And it was a blessing because my parents, they supported my dream, which was like really, really great mentally. So I got to the US and I had to start a life. So I had no money, I had no English, I didn't know pretty much anyone here. So where do I start? So I started to scramble around and to get a job. So I ended up getting a job as a janitor at one of the companies at the airport because that's the only thing they could give me. And then the boss was like, yo, you cannot even speak. I cannot even talk to you.
Right.
So just be here. I know you need the money. I'm going to help you out. But just be here. Just at least do something. So I was cleaning the trash and sweeping floors and doing all these things. And I was like, man, this is not what I want to do for the long run, right? I'm going to take this job as an opportunity for me to get to where I want, but I need to set milestones along the way. So where do I start? What's my first step? So my first step was to actually learn English, right? That was around June of 2015. So I went to Island College, and then I signed up for a ESL class. So I started to learn English, and then within 4 or 5 months, I could communicate with everyone. I could understand exactly what people were saying. I could talk. I was like, okay, now what? So at the job, I was the only black in my department, right? And that was kind of tougher because people look down on you and then they feel like you cannot really accomplish anything. But for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to use this challenge, this struggle as an opportunity for me to strive, right? I need to show these people my value. So where is my value at? So I started to just learn the job at the department, and we had about 18 positions. So each position was actually filled by one person. I was like, what if I could learn all these positions? What if I could do everybody's job to the point where they cannot get rid of me? Because I have so much value in me that even when they want to, nobody can get rid of me. So I started to ask questions. I started to observe. No one would train me, right? Because they had nothing to do with me except for my boss. So I started to just learn the job without them actually showing me anything. I was observing, I was asking questions, I was just watching and listening. So one day, December came, we had a lot of snow, like literally a lot of snow. People couldn't drive, they had 6 cars. I got to the job, pumped up, and my boss was like, man, we have 6 cars. I said, okay, who are they? So he said, okay, this, they are not here. I'm screwed. I said, yeah, could I take the job and do it? And he looked at me, he was like, how would you do it? I said, you are screwed, right? He said, yeah. So now it's either I do it or I don't. But either way, you're screwed. Yeah, so he was like, whatever. Okay. So I got at 6 in the morning. I started to fill up all these positions. It was really tough because some of the positions, you have to go in the freezer, get the meat out, like build up those requisitions. It was really tough. So got at 6 in the morning all the way to almost midnight to finish everything. I got everything done. I went home. The next day, the manager who was traveling that week, she came back to Seattle, and then she asked the supervisor, John, and she was like, you had 6 calls yesterday. How did you manage to get the job done? And then John pointed at me and said, that kid did it. So she looked at me, she looked at John, and then she was like, so how in the world this kid is a janitor? She called me into the office, and then she asked me, how did you know how to do the job? I said, no one could give me a position. I didn't even have my name on the schedule. So I just started to learn by myself. I started to just observe and then try to help however I could. Then she told John, from now on, this kid is your new lead in the department. So I went to work that morning as a janitor, and then I worked out as a lead.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a cool story.
Yeah. So, but to get to that point, I did not wait for the opportunity to come to me. I got ready. I wanted to be ready along the way so that when the opportunity actually comes, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to, because all I needed was one shot to get my name on the board. And I became a lead. I started to run the department and just try to make changes. The biggest change I made was to actually reinvent the inventory process, because I was working the warehouse, and that's where the money was. So we were controlling basically whatever that was coming in and out. But the inventory system at the time was kind of trash. It used to take way too much time to accomplish it, and missing stuff was kind of easy. So I did basically reorganize the entire warehouse to where we started to put away stuff by alphabetical order. And then when you're looking for items, you know exactly where to go. You just look for the first letter.
Right.
And that saved us so much money, and we increased the revenue. And my boss was like, man, you cannot be a lead anymore. You have to be a supervisor. I said, no, I don't want it. I love my overtime, right? Because becoming a supervisor.
Salary.
Yes, I had to be salary. And he said, I want you to stay here, but the general manager wants you to be a supervisor. I said, I don't want it. I mean, I want you to be my boss. I don't want anybody else to be my boss. So I stayed there for like a couple of weeks. And one day they paged my name. I was like, am I in trouble? Am I fired? So I went to the GM office. He was looking for me. He said, you have so much value here. You have so much talent. And I want you to become a supervisor in a different department. I said, I don't want it. I love my overtime. I'm making way more money here than I'll be making there. Then he said, how much do you make a month with your overtime? I gave you the numbers. Okay, I'll pay you that. I said, okay, let's do this.
Wow.
So I switched department. I went to a different department, which was like a whole new game. I had to learn the department. I had to learn the process. And they gave me the KPI with all the struggles that were going on and all the difficulties. I started to fix stuff slowly, help my team, and build up my team also. And just I love increasing revenue in the department. Then the other company, which was kind of our competitor, they called me and they said, we heard about what you are doing there, and we want you to come over here. We really need you. I said, I love my company here. I'm not going to come. And they said, what if we pay you this? Oh, Jesus. So I looked at the job offer, and basically, they gave me about 50% increase. So I went to the GM. I said, yo, they are giving me the exact same position with this much money. I wanted to be honest with you. Either you match it or I'm out.
Right.
Right? And he said, man, we cannot compete. So I went to the other company. I started to work. And 3 months later, the GM called me. He said, yo, I need you to come back. But not as a supervisor, but I want you to come back as an operation manager. I said, why? He said, because Jane, who was my mentor, the one who promoted me as a lead, she went back to her country, Denmark, and the position was kind of not filled out. And she said, before she left, she told the GM, if you want to fix this department and to change the entire company, you need to bring that kid back at any cost, right? So I was working at Sky Chefs at the time, and then he called me. He said, could you come over tomorrow to have coffee? I said, yeah, boss, I'll come. I didn't know why he was calling me, but I had so much respect for him that anything he wanted from me, I'd be more than happy to listen to him. At least have coffee, at least sit down. That's how much respect I have for him. Then we talked about all the struggles he was facing in the department, and he said, kid, you have to come back. I said, boss, I would love to come back, but what would be my position? Because when I was working there, Jen did not really have much control about whatever she was doing. So you were kind of like dictating exactly what she was doing. But if you want me to come over, I need to feel like I own the department. I want to run the department the way I want it. Because you know what I can bring to the table. I know what I can bring to the table. But I just don't want to be asking you every time I want to make a decision to better this department. At this point, it's not only about the money, because I can become a manager over there too, right? People love me, they respect me, they know my hustle, they know my drive. But if I have to come back, it's going to be out of love, but it's going to be also because I want to take the company and the department to the next step. But, of course, you have to pay me more money. So we discussed, and he was like, okay, fine. When can you start? I said, okay, I need to be fair to them. I have to have a conversation with my boss and tell them I'm leaving. So I went back to Sky Chefs, and I talked to my boss. And then the GM said, I was waiting to see how long is it going to take for them to call you back, right? So, and she was like, whenever you need something, just know this is your family. You will always have a job here.
Wow. Well, Hervé, that's like a master class in how to go from being a janitor to, head of operations. That's incredible. What I love about that story is that, you were prepared when the opportunity presented itself versus there's an opportunity and, now I should figure out how I can capitalize on that. Right. That was the big takeaway from that story. And the fact that, oh my gosh, I mean, just the level of perseverance necessary to go from coming here without speaking any English to really. So what was the time frame in which all this happened to where you were, in that operations lead role?
So basically I got a job exactly June 23rd of 2015 as a janitor. And I was just cleaning the floor and taking the trash out. Then I started to learn English. So it took me about 4 to 5 months before I could really speak English. So that was around November, December. And I just started to learn the department, right? To observe, to do all these kind of things. So February of 2016, I became a lead. So it took me about 7 months to go from cleaning the floor to lead the department. And then from there, it took me about 4 months to become a supervisor. And then 2018, that was another 2 years after that, I became a manager.
Wow.
So from June of 2015 to November of 2018, about 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I was hoping you would touch on is kind of how you went, like the heights that you went at that company, and then your decision to come into real estate.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's where we're going now, right?
Yeah.
So we got okay. So I love that story in and of itself, though. Is like, I mean, it has nothing to do with real estate, but it has everything to do with, with just perseverance and grit. And anyone, regardless of your background or whether you can speak English, right? I mean, it just shows that if you work really hard, you put in the effort, you're always looking for ways of bringing value, right? We talk about this all the time in our business. How do we bring value to people? And you found out ways to do that when you as a janitor, not even as a commission type of salesperson, right? Where you would really have benefited from it. So, man, that's a great story. Okay, so let's talk about how you go from management so these are companies you're working at are providing the food service for airplanes.
Yes,
is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So
okay, so I want to talk about that a little. No, I'm just kidding. I've been on some of these airplanes.
They do provide staff for the airlines, and my last role was actually the transportation manager. So transportation department was the biggest department in the company at the time, right? So I was running assembly, and was fine. I had about 60 employees, and they had a lot of challenges. My boss gave me KPIs and all the struggles they were going through, and like how much overtime they had, losing money with the overtime. The department was kind of like not under control, like out of control. So he started with me. He said, "Yo, I need you to go there, and this is what I want you to fix." I said, "Okay, boss, how much time do I have?" He said, "Take your time, you get about 6 months," right? That was 2021, around August. He gave me the position. So I went there, and I started to observe. I like to observe. When I go somewhere, I just like to observe. And I started to watch people. For 2 weeks straight, I did all the shifts. So I was basically working like 18 hours because I wanted to see every single shift, every single supervisor, and every single employee. So I could see exactly where the problem is coming from. So we had about 65 to 70 employees. And then within my first 2 weeks, I knew exactly I had to fire 25 of them.
Wow.
Yes. So they had to either shift the mindset, change how they do things, or you have no job, right? Because when it comes to business, I don't really play games, right? I'm going to fire you today, and tomorrow we have coffee together. So business is business. So I had a one-on-one conversation with the supervisors in each department. I also had a one-on-one conversation with the employees I knew I had to fire. I gave them a chance to actually correct their ways. Most of them, it was because they had like a bad attendance, right? If I want you to be here and you are not here, I'm losing money.
Right.
Or if you come late, I don't like people coming late. I respect my time so much, and I want you to respect my time. You late, you done. And some of them were coming to work like hangover, drunk, whatever, and they had, not really performing well. So I gave them a chance to actually correct what they had to correct, but most of them did not. So I did fire 25 employees within my first 3 weeks of taking the job. Like everyone was freaked out.
Yeah.
My boss came in the office. He was like, "Yo, what are you doing?" I said, "I am doing exactly what you asked me to do, right? You want results, right? You want to increase revenue, right? You want to reduce overtime. You want to increase quality, right? Then let me do it. If you trusted me to be in this position, then you should trust my process to get you to where you want to go, right?" That was September, but trust me, I had to suffer because by firing those employees plus 2 supervisors, now I had to pick up extra shift to cover until I started training new people. So I did fix the department, and then within 4 or 5 months, we met all the expectation, like all my KPIs. So I got to a point where I was going to work. It was boring because the department was running so smooth, whether or not I'm there. Then I went to my boss. I said, "This is too easy. Like, we did the next 30 days. If you don't give me something much harder, I'm not going to quit. Because I'm not going to quit because the job is kind of sucks. I love my job, but it's boring. I'm coming to work every single day, and I have pretty much nothing to do. My employees are rock solid. My supervisors are like just killing it. All I have to do, just give them like orders and support them and then give them help. That's it. It's boring." Then the other department, which was the biggest department, was also struggling. And I went from 7 employees to 250 employees in like 4 months, he said, okay, why don't you take over transportation? I did not know what I was getting myself into. That was tough. So 12 supervisors, 250 employees, and it was really tough. But I love challenges. That's where I really strive the most. For some people, when they face challenges or difficulties, they see it as a negative thing. But for me, it's something to strive on, something to build on, right? I just love challenges. So I went there, I fixed the department, and the department was running solid. But at some point, I lost the passion. I lost the drive of just working there.
Okay, so I know we're getting to the part now about real estate.
Yes.
So how does that transition into selling real estate?
Yeah, so I mean, we can go backwards a little bit. In 2019, I bought my first house. Charles was my
okay.
my loan officer. I always knew I wanted to become an entrepreneur, right?
And I was always trying to like encourage him to get into it.
Yeah, I always knew I had to be in business. But coming to America, I didn't know what business to get into. So from 2015 to last year, I failed in pretty much 5 businesses before I got into real estate. So while doing my 9 to 5, I was also trying to build businesses on the side, just learning entrepreneurship.
So while you were still doing the job for the food service, you were doing some other side businesses.
Yes. I did pretty much everything you could think of. I drove Uber. I did everything.
Okay.
Right? But I was failing in most of my businesses. Then 2019, when I got promoted to the manager role, my pay increased, and I was like, man, I'm making all this money. I need to park it somewhere. I just don't want to, I need to do something, right? Then I started to do some research, and then a friend of mine introduced me to Charles. Then we started the process, and we got a house. But when I was buying my house, I had no clue about real estate. I had no information whatsoever. Whatever I was doing, I was just following whatever Charles was telling me, right? You do this, I do it. You sign these documents, you do it. And then my real estate agent also, he was helping me out. But then last year, when I was thinking of leaving my job, not because the job sucked, but because I lost the passion, right? I got to a position where I was dreaming of being in a position. I dreamed of being the operation manager. But after the operation manager, I did not want to go any higher. And then I had pretty much nothing to clamber for.
Right.
And I was like, man, I'm just losing my passion. I'm just losing my drive. This is unfair to my employees. This is unfair to my boss. This is unfair to my colleague. I don't want to come to work and give them 100% of myself. I want to give them 120%. If I'm not able to do that, I have to leave. But if I have to leave, where do I have to go? But then I started to connect the dots going backwards. I was like, I love real estate. And I know how difficult it was for me to understand the process and understand everything that goes around real estate. If it was tough for me, it means it was also tough for any person that comes outside of this country, right? So I'm going to get into real estate to help these people to find ways to build wealth through home ownership by me providing them the right information and then driving them through the process from A to Z. So I started to do some research, and then I found out I had to take my classes, which was 90 hours. I was okay, that's easy. 90 hours, like 10 hours a day for 9 days, it's done. So I got a vacation from work for 2 weeks, locked myself in the room. I was studying pretty much from sun up to sundown every single day. Finished my classes, got my license, called Charles, he came to my house, we had a nice conversation, and then I just got started.
And when was that?
That was last year, April last year.
April of 2022.
This is 1 year anniversary in the business, and he's already
Yes,
killing it.
that was.
Oh yeah, it's 1 year right now.
Yes,
It's April.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
So let's this podcast is going to run longer than most, but that's okay. I think it's a great story, and so let's talk about. This is where I really want to get into a little bit about. You touched on it, right? I mean, the fact that you didn't know what to do as someone who hadn't been in this country very long. So once you got your real estate license, let's talk about the last year. First of all, you've had quite a bit of success for a 1 year person in real estate, right?
Yeah, we can say that. I closed on about 22 transactions the past 12 months.
22 transactions in
Yes.
your first 12 months.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Just getting
Thank you.
started too.
Yeah. So what I did was when I was taking my classes, for me, my process is I don't wait for opportunities to come. I get myself ready for when the opportunity actually comes. Because when the opportunity comes, you don't want to be like, oh, okay, let me prepare myself. When
Right.
I'm ready, I come back.
Right.
It's
I'm
gonna-
seeing a theme here in your
Yeah.
life, Hervé.
Yeah, it's gonna be gone, right? So what I did was when I was taking my classes, I started to build my client list, right? I started to talk to people around me. I started to talk to my employees. I started to talk to everyone I know. Okay, I am in the business, right? And then when they will be like, oh man, I'm ready to buy a house, I'll be like, okay, I'm not licensed yet, but if you give me about 3 weeks, I'm gonna be licensed, right? So that's how I got my first deal. I got licensed April 14th, and then June 3rd, I closed on my first deal. And that client, I got that client when I was actually taking my classes. So just being prepared and then getting myself ready for the business, that's what helped me.
Of those 22 transactions in the first 12 months, how many of those were you representing buyers?
All of them.
All of them.
Every single one of them. Yeah, I only focus on home buyers because I know most people, they are not home buyers, and then I focus more on first-time home buyers because that's where my value is, right? So like most agents, they try to go like different routes. Like if you are buying a house, for example, you already know what real estate is. I don't have much value to provide to you other than filling documents and then sending contracts, right? And then value in itself is not really value. Value is only value when the marketplace values what you have to provide.
Right. So I'm assuming all first-time home buyers, all purchase.
Most of them, yeah, every single one of them. So that's just how I do it. I just focus on immigrants and people who really want to know exactly what real estate is, show them the value of home ownership, giving them the right information. Some of my clients, when I meet them, they don't even know what credit score is.
Right.
Right? They don't even know if they could even buy a house. We closed on the transactions with Charles last year, Espoir transaction.
Yeah.
He also works for you. When I delivered the keys to the mom, she cried.
Right.
And she told me, I never thought of even owning a house in America one day. And like that transaction means more than just making a living.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Just being able to to help people reach their goals, reach their dream, and then becoming homeowner in America, that's to me means more than anything.
And if I may interject too, the transaction that he's talking about is, so I was helping a woman whose son was helping get a lot of the documents, and Hervé and I were working with the son, and the son was very sharp, very responsive, new technology like the back of his hand was, he helped the transaction go through, and he was also expressing interest in, hey, he was looking up to Hervé and I, like, we're in this business. And he said, I would like to go into the mortgage side of it. So I said, okay, this is the training, this is what you have to do, and then you got to get ready for your exam. And he just did the same thing like you see Hervé did, locked himself in a room, worked on the material, learned it, got his mortgage license. And then I told my manager, Andrew, this is my new loan officer. We're going to hire him. He's going to do awesome things. Espoir. And that's who you met the other day, too.
Yep.
He's on my team. So it's just like growing the team and, so excited for all the future potential. And sorry to cut you off.
Well, no, when we were down at the open house, I mean, he had his first closing that day. That was his client that was there, your mutual client, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, he was so excited about buying his first home, and so
That's my guy, Espoir, man. He's an amazingly talented young man, and
He's very smart.
Yeah, we're just excited for him. But yeah, go on. Sorry to cut you. Yeah.
Well, no. So I want to ask about some of the challenges and why you really focused on working mostly with immigrants. What are the challenges that you think are most often felt by people? Who is it? Because look, I know people that grew up in this country whose parents and grandparents grew up in this country who don't understand anything about fiscal literacy, right? I mean, they don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't know that you can buy a house with 0 to 3% down, depending on certain programs and what's out there. They don't know what a credit score is. So I can only imagine, people then that are new to this country who also have a language barrier. So what are the things that you've identified where you can bring value to immigrants that are going through the home buying process?
For most people, it's fear, right? Like as immigrants coming to the US, we don't really know how to navigate to this system. It's like it's a new system for us, right? Coming from Africa, things are way different. We don't even have mortgage loan back home, right? To buy a house, you have to pay cash, like buy a piece of land, build your own house, or buy someone else's house, but you have to pay cash. And then coming to this country, for most people, they only see one way of actually building wealth, which is find a job, work hard for 45 years, and then have your 401k as a retirement plan.
Right.
Versus trying to do the same thing, working hard, having your job, but then also building wealth on the side. Real estate is kind of like hand-free, right? You buy a house and then you start building your equity over time. You don't even have to do anything about it other than paying your mortgage every month. But for most people, they feel like having that loan, it's kind of like a burden, and then they have the fear of doing it. But they don't know all the benefits that comes with buying a house. But the same people will be actually renting some places, right?
Right.
I had a couple, they were really scared of actually having a mortgage loan, but they are renting like a 4-bedroom house like for $3,500.
Right.
I said, yo, the exact same $3,500 you are paying here every single month, this could be your mortgage.
Yeah.
Right? How long have you been here? And then the wife was like, oh, we moved in this house like 13 months ago. Then I had to do like a simple math, right? Like 10 months only, it's like 35,000 already. So if you have lived here for like 13 months, which means you already spent over 40 grand, what's going to happen tomorrow if you have to move out, or if the seller wants to sell the house? You are moving out empty-handed, right?
Right.
But if you own your own piece of land, you own your piece of real estate, you stay here for the exact 13 months, your house will go up in value, your loan will go down a little bit. If you have to move out, you can move out with something in your pocket to help you with your next phase of life, right? Most people don't see it that way. They are just scared. So that's how we come in. That's how we show them the value of home ownership. It's not just something that's going to be like super like a burden on you. Of course, your mortgage may be much higher than your rent payment, but when you are paying your mortgage, not everything goes to the bank.
Right.
You have what called interest and principal.
Correct.
The interest goes to the bank, but then the principal, we like to call it like a forced savings account.
Correct.
Right? You are forced to actually open up a saving account. The day you are moving out of your house, you always cash out. Or if you don't want to move out of your house, you can create what we call generational wealth. That's something we lack even back home, right? We are left behind. Most families, our parents, they just live paycheck to paycheck, right? They don't really have something to leave to us if they are gone. But now, us in America, we have an opportunity to leave something for our children.
Yeah.
The house I bought with Charles in 2019, whether or not I'm here, I know my son will be good with that equity.
Right.
Right? He can utilize it to pay for college. He can utilize it to do whatever he wants. But if I didn't have that house, I wouldn't have that much money equity.
So how many of the people that you've helped buy real estate in the last year do you think were inspired and more motivated to actually buy the home because of your story?
I would say, like, every person I meet, I would tell them exactly how I did get my house, and then the value I'm getting and the benefit I'm getting from my house. And then I will understand the situation and explain to them, okay, listen, this is one way of doing things, and if you want to build wealth over time, if you want to live like a legacy for your children, you can do it through real estate, right? Working hard, it's good, but it's hard for us to save like 50 grand a year, like
right,
from a job.
And so I totally agree with you. And my I guess my point is that you're inspiring people who are just like you,
just like me,
to want to be able to, because many people have the ability to buy a home and just don't realize they have the ability. Like you said, they're scared.
Right.
But when they can talk to you about it and see the journey you've taken, right, the education that you have given to Hervé, right, and that you can then pass on to your clients, you're really inspiring a generation of, right, people in your community that not only can already buy real estate, but now they want to. Now, right, they're motivated and they understand the process better. Right. They don't have that same fear because someone they can relate to, mm-hmm, has been, right, through the same journey and can guide them through it.
Yeah. Most of the people, it's the same thing, right? Either they have the wrong information, or they are scared. Some people are even like, oh, I've heard I have to have like a 700 credit score or have like a 20% down payment.
Right.
But then we have to break it down to like for them, okay, if you have at least 580 credit score and then 3.5% down, you are more than qualified
right.
to buy a house. And then these are the benefits that will come with buying a house. And then this is how the process will look like. So that now they understand better, and now they are ready to make a decision when the time comes.
Yeah. No, well, I think that getting your story out is important, because I think that there's other people out there who don't realize how they can inspire people amongst their community, whether it be in real estate or mortgage or just other people in business that are having success and helping other people realize that it's possible to do that. And so that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast and tell about your story. We could probably go on for 2 more hours because one of the other things that I love about what you've done with your business. And we didn't talk about this, but I just see it because I've looked at your social media and some of the other things that you're doing. I mean, not only are you a year into real estate and you've already kind of found a niche that is really working for you and helping your community, but you're also very innovative with, you have a style, you have a presence, you have a social media platform that's also getting your name out there and building your community. I mean, we should probably have you come back on the podcast and we will just talk a little bit about, in that first year specifically, like what could a new real estate agent do with their business to grow in the way that you have? So I'm going to have you back and we're going to talk about that because I think a lot of people could learn from your story. And what I would encourage people to do that listen to this whole episode is, go back and listen to you think about just from the conversation we've had, the perseverance just simply to get to North America, whether it be Toronto or Seattle or whatever, the perseverance and what was necessary to make that journey happen, that has a lot of lessons there. And then the work that you had working in food services and that journey, I think is a masterclass. I mean, really, that was a masterclass. And then what you've been able to do in real estate. So you're a super impressive guy. I'm glad that you made the journey up to come sit down with us today. And I'm glad that, you were able to help inspire, him through helping him buy a home, right? I love that that's how this kind of journey got started. And the fact that you work with more buyers than sellers, well, as mortgage guys, we love that. So, well, cool. Well, you guys, thank you for coming up today. This has been an awesome conversation. Getting to know a little bit more about your backstory, about how you got in the business. And I think there's more conversations to be had that people could really learn from. So we'll have you back on a Market Shares episode in the near future.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. For those of you that are watching, I hope you got a lot of value out of this conversation. I know I sure did, and I was sitting here the whole time. So if you haven't already liked and subscribed to the Market Shares podcast, please do so. But more than that, like I say, share it with people. Share it with people in real estate. I mean, these guys' story is inspiring. They're really helping their communities. They're also showing a new way of doing business in today's day and age. And I think a lot of people could learn from it. So please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, take care and bye for now.